welcome back. Up next, we have Paula García Esteban, data visualization and AI specialist at Stratodom. We'll share her knowledge on the topic unlocking data insights, a deep dive into user-centered powered BI report design. Paula, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. Please confirm if you can see the presentation correctly. And it's happening now, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome to this workshop session about data visualization techniques, about user-centered design applied to Power BI report, but even if you work with other tools, data visualization tools, we're going to see a lot of concepts that you can really apply to other scenarios or data visualization tools, environments, and even to product development scenarios where you need to develop something graphical with an interface. Because I try to connect all the best practices from the front development and the capacities or the features we have in Power BI, and what's more important, how we elaborate our message with data, thinking about thinking on the needs the final user have, because it's where we can bring the value and put value into the table. Of course, we need data quality, but we need something else. Okay, so it's what we are reviewing today. And I hope you like, and at least that you get some ideas or things you can apply directly in your reports, even if we are going to see a lot of different options and methodologies and approaches. But the idea is you get 2-3 things that really helps you to be more efficient and communicate better your message with data. So let's start. Well, maybe you have already realized that my accent comes from Spain. I hope you understand everything clear, but if not, please write the questions or whatever. I try to repeat always the different main concepts in different ways, so I hope you will understand everything. My name is Paula. I define myself, or I introduce myself as fast as possible, saying I'm a data lover. But the real thing is I'm always connecting people and final users and technology. I really like communications and interface and design, these things that are more close sometimes to strategy, to people, to humans, no? Because we are consuming technology, we are using technology in our lives. I'm a Microsoft MVP in data platform and artificial intelligence. I'm a LinkedIn learning instructor. My courses are in the Spanish library. But I'm participating more and more in international communities and events, so you can follow me in LinkedIn if you want, and I usually try to share everything I do, and I'm preparing more contents in English, so hopefully you can enjoy some of them and improve your data visualization techniques or have different approaches, and then you decide what to apply, of course. And that's my website. That's another website that's in English, uxforpowerbi.com. And well, here's where you can find myself, and you can always reach me and open a chat and say hello or whatever. Okay, that's my LinkedIn user. I've set just a few key points of my professional career or what I am. And the photo was a bit old. You can see my hairstyle have changed a little bit. And this is even old from this photo. This photo has like 6 years now, 5 years now. I never remember, but I don't care. Because the idea here in a workshop, even a professional workshop, I was not playing with kids. No. This was a part of a team building session. And the last part of the building session was to create your curriculum vitae with Lego, with the pieces we have in the middle. Like you can take different stuff and then you create your curriculum vitae. Something that is not easy at all, but I try to represent my professional career. And I think it's still valid. This image is like perfect what I'm doing now. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own company. I have different customers. I try to connect these two words, and it's what I'm representing here. That is the flowers, the colors, the unstructured elements, because I'm very creative in my free time. I'm always involved into music projects and yeah, I like dancing. I like a lot of creative stuff, let's say. But in the other side, I have studied telecommunications. So I'm a telecommunications engineer. Imagine that my mindset is like engineer approach, everything ordered. And the thing is, I can talk fluently in technical manners, and I communicate well with technical teams. But in the other side, or in the other hand, I'm very creative and try to connect different dots and mix the better of these two words. Okay. And this is relevant for this session because some of the tools I give you comes more maybe from this design concept, but I always try to put this in a logical manner in procedures. Why? Because we are not artists when we are developing a new report. We are developers or we are designers. That is the correct definition. Why? Because an artist expresses. They're not persuading someone. They are not, or it's not, they're just expressing, not trying, maybe trying to generate some emotions, but they are not focused on a goal, on something objective they need in the business. But a designer is solving a problem. So we are designers when we are developing dashboards or data visualization projects, and we need to solve a problem. So we need to follow a sequence, a pattern, a series of different steps until we reach the solution and we deliver. That's the idea. The thing is, we are solving a complex problem, and we're going to see what a complex problem is. But yeah, the main idea is review today how to conceptualize exploratory reports, because they're the most common reports. What I mean by exploratory, something that you can open and you consume in an autonomous way by your own. You open your Power BI service, you go through the workspace you need, and you click into the report you want and you explore. But you need to have a structure, not only tables and data there. You need to have something that helps you to elaborate the message you need. So that's why this connections is very, very important. And for doing this, I'm getting the best of design thinking. That's a methodology aimed to generating solutions to complex problems. And it has 5 steps, phases. First, emphasized, because we need to understand and really connect with the business needs. Then define. We need clear definition of objectives, the contents we need. Then with that, we can ideate, elaborate the ideas, then prototype them. And with this prototype, ideas to validate with the business, testing. Testing if the idea is correct, then putting the data, and then validating if everything is correct, and we go live, we go to production. So I recommend to follow. I have developed my own methodology, but it's like a mix of these different 2 words. And the idea is to have something we can follow, series of steps that help us to solve these complex problems. This complex is not an adjective I have invented. The Cinefin framework define the different kind of problems we can find in our workplace environment. And the idea I want to share with you is the complex problems have a lot of potential solutions, and that we need emergent strategies. And what is more important, we need to prove, because we have a lot of different visuals in Power BI, a lot of possibilities in terms of how many pages I put together or not, or if I hide one because I want that one of them is more relevant, and then I want to go deeper, but I put a drill through or a tooltip, or I can do a lot of things, a lot of technical options in Power BI. A part of the bunch of visuals we have with all the possibilities we have in every single visual. So imagine the combinations. Plus, we are not generating a report for one single person, ideally for a whole company, for a department. And one of those people has their own lives and backgrounds and knowledge about data visualization techniques and Power BI on maybe the topic they're analyzing. So we need to consider a lot, really a lot of options, and that's why it's complex. A complex problem is something that has unpredictable results and many possible solutions. I already mentioned it. And we find complex environments when there is a high level of human involvement. And that's what I told you before. We are treating with people, different backgrounds, different users, different needs, and we need to validate the development. I'm gonna pick the laser. Validate the development of the product from an MVP, my minimum valuable product, and collect feedback until the final result is achieved. And that's why this methodology is good, because we diverge, we extend the possibilities, we analyze, we emphasize, then we converge. Then we diverge, we think out of the box, we develop new ideas, then we converge. How? Experimentation, validating that the ideas are correct or at least are in the right direction. Then we can fine tune, okay? But at least we are not with our eyes closed when we are walking into this development process. We know and we are validating that we are aligned with the real business needs. The principles are empathy, divergent thinking, because we need to expand our ideas, and experimentation. And remember, we are talking about user-centered Power BI reports. This methodology is also known as the double diamond because of the phases of diverge, converge, diverge, converge. I like this slide, it's in Spanish, sorry, but the idea is you came from a point A to another point B, and in the meantime you extend, converge, extend, converge the ideas. And in these steps, you can make your own little boxes or own tools to really help you to emphasize, to discover the real needs, to define, to synthesize all the information, then how to iterate, then how to validate, and how to deliver. These are the phases, and I mix this methodology with the UX layers. Which are these UX layers? This has been used for years in the web development. For the work, the designers, the web designers use this methodology, or they should. And everything starts from the bottom, like a building. You start from user needs, then the site objectives is not a site anymore, it's a dashboard. And here, this row is showing the time, the evolution, the development process in terms of design. Again, we are talking about design. And this is the first step. Then content requirements, how many pages, how many information in every page I would put, because we have limitations in terms of how we perceive the information. We cannot overload people. We need to identify how many information we're going to show. Functional specifications, I need to filter, know, these kind of things we can do in Power BI. Then information architecture, how I gonna connect all the different pages, how I will interaction design, how I will interact, where I will place my buttons, my slicers, how I will provide an interface that is intuitive enough to the user that is consuming autonomously my system, my program, my tool, business tool, how he's going to interact with the different buttons and navigate through the different pages. Then navigation design, information design, interface design. We're getting closer to the last part, the top part, and then visual design. Visual design is more connected to colors, to the branding, and I highly recommend to disconnect this visual design and standardize it as much as possible, because then you can focus your attention on these parts, the core parts. And those parts are those that they're gonna make the difference between a good report or a bad report, because we're not developing something extra beautiful thing, or we're not artists. Again, we are not developing pieces of art. We're developing tools that help the people to get value from data. Okay, so that's why I recommend to disconnect and have something standardized that is called design system. Well, in case you want to read more about this, you can ask me for the PDF, or I will share it with the organization, and maybe they deliver it. So, well, don't worry about that. And I highly recommend to read this if you want to know more about these different layers you can follow to define and design your reports. But what is important about colors, about these aesthetics and these designs and this visual part, that sometimes where we sometimes spend a lot of time choosing the colors, how I change the title and then put this and then the access and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it makes sense, but do not color. I don't recommend to color just because of coloring, okay? Use color always with a reason. And what's the reason? I want to focus attention of the user on a KPI, and a specific KPI, because we are crossing our objectives and covering something, or we have an alert, or we have a main KPI, and I really want to reinforce this number because it's really important for the business, and rest can be very minimalistic or whatever, but choose what you want to highlight. And if you use color, take care about readability. We need to make dashboard accessible dashboard, and that means that we are developing dashboards for everyone, and everyone should read, and everyone needs enough contrast, background, and the letter and the number. We cannot use yellow and then put white letters. You cannot see it. Maybe yes, you can, but you really need to make a lot of efforts. So use color always with a reason, and taking into account we need to create something that is very easy to read for every single user, okay? With disabilities or not. What a design system is much more than colors. And we have the themes in Power BI. You maybe recognize this interface where we can choose the different themes. Here we have the accessible themes, the default themes. But we need to think in this visual aesthetic thing, with more crossing the boundaries of the colors. We need to think in fonts, sizes, how I will give protagonism to titles on main numbers, main KPIs, and separate or differentiate it from descriptions or other text in the axis, for example, or if I use labels in the different visualization elements I have, how I will present it. Then the structure of the report, where I'm gonna place the header, the navigation, the filters, the buttons, how I gonna show the user where to click. When we are in an e-commerce, we recognize we have the buttons, and we realize they are clickable because they're always maybe in orange, in yellow, in red. I don't care the color itself, but I cannot put in a page the buttons here, then in the other way, in the other page there, and start moving everything, because the user will get lost, and that's not a good design. Then help elements, the tooltip style, we can do a lot of things, okay? We can also simplify, but keep in mind that we are talking more about more things, not only colors. And why is this important? Because if we remember, we have already talked about prototypes. We were gonna talk more about these whole steps, etc. But imagine we have validate with the business a design like this. That's a prototype. It's a low fidelity prototype because I'm not using colors, but we have already validated number of pages, the structure with the KPIs in the top, then the content I need with a main table, then something that gives me information about the percentage of the different categories I have, then maybe quantity by category. In that moment, maybe I define that here I need to see this in a country instead of ordering this country 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Then align, blah, 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 and space for an image, then slicers and things that help me to interact. Here a little description, here a button where I provide more information and ways to contact the development team in case I need a change or I have a problem or I don't understand anything, I need help. I don't know, we have defined all the elements, the structure, and everything makes sense from a business point of view. So we can then create this in Power BI without touching almost anything in terms of the visuals. Focus on this table. And if you are familiar with Power BI, you can realize you have not touched anything with the default theme. Also this, like the typical element, when you click into this visual, you put the data and you have this visual. I have not touched anything. The only thing here is the color of the canvas. I have put a gray. So it gives this feeling of layers and order and more organized environment, maybe, if you perceive it. If not, that's personal. So it cannot be on your mind, and perception has this thing that you have not never find a final a same person that you have not the truth of how something is being perceived. But the idea of this is to have this structure. And as you can see here, I use a different gray to separate a little bit and have another layer where I let the user to interact and have more contextual information, but I try to focus attention in the main part of the analysis that is this, okay? So we have validated this with the business without touching anything in Power BI. We have the definition of what we need. Then we implement it in Power BI without touching the colors, without spending time, what is more important. And then I can apply my colors, my visual aesthetics, that I have previously standardized and validate within the company. Maybe you can go for a very soft and minimalistic space, because I like these neutral, soft colors, these calm vibes, and this pastel thing. Or maybe I can go for a dark theme. This is a test I did time ago, a bit childish with Disney villains, but it's just an example to let you know and to let you perceive that when you validate this, then you can switch to this, or a blue environment, or a green because your logo is green, or you can do whatever. But the real conversation should be focused on this if you want to develop for the users, because you can divide the conversation and focus on the message and how they need to consume the data. Of course, you can choose light, dark mode. Remember, it's important, or I highly recommend, to have these different colors, different shadows, different gray scale in black or dark black, or a gray that has the lower intensity, and have something that helps you to structured information, because that's really, really very important for the users to feel calm when they are analyzing. Or also you can use the shadows, but remember always you need something that helps you to elaborate and structure, okay? A part of the colors you use in the different visuals. And I'm gonna show you a little demo and how I developed this design system with some customers that ask for this, of course. And I highly recommend to have a JSON file, but also supplementary materials. That allows you to copy and paste. I'm gonna show you the trick now in real time in minutes. And then a style guide that help to validate if I'm using the correct size of the letters, of the numbers, of the titles, how I use color, how I do not use color, which colors are allowed, in case I have a specific color for highlighting the good things and the bad things, usually red and green. We need to have defined these kind of colors, because then the user will realize super fast where to look at. If I have my green that show that something's good, if I see green in another report, I will realize that that's something good and I need to focus my attention. Or red, or this yellow for highlighting things I consider that they are relevant, okay? And how to use the color and typography and the structure I will follow in my different reports, etc. So I'm gonna show you a demo and how you can apply these design systems in minutes, so you can really disconnect and then focus your attention and the rest of the session on how connect with the business needs, okay? Let me show you. I have already the materials prepared, and first of all, I'm gonna show you the tools, the complementary materials, because I told you I have my JSON file. But a part of that, I have a PBX file with the different visuals, or the main visuals, with all these components, let's say, that will help me to put everything in my design, okay? Part to the whole, the cards, the KPIs, the matrices, the tables, everything, okay? I'm not showing everything, but you can imagine the elements and the main visuals with their different characteristics, with the use of color I have validate with the business. And then in parallel, I have another one with the headers, the subheaders for including more contextual information, the filters, different ways to select and to interact, because that's something important. The grid. What's the grid? The thing that helped me to organize and connect all the elements, and I'm copying it, okay? I'm just selecting, pressing the control button, and I'm gonna copy this. Then you're gonna realize why. I have here more interactive designs, the buttons with the style of the buttons. The primary button, yellow, brighter, very present. You will see it. If I put it in another report with an alert, I'm sure you're going to see it, because that's the color I define for that. And then I have other soft elements, because not always you have to interact with every button. You need to standardize and define the level of importance of the elements you place in the different pages. And then, I don't know, all the options you can consider within a company. Maybe you can simplify this or make this richer and richer and include more and more elements. That's up to you. The more options, the more complicated then to know how to choose. So keep a balance always in general. How I apply this, imagine we have validate with the business. That's ugly, I know. This is not a beautiful report, but that's the idea. Imagine I have validate this with the business. I already have my data, my model, everything, and I have this report. It's what the business need, and yeah, that's what I have. First thing I should do is to adapt the display. In this case, this customer has a canvas setting that needs to be in HD. So this this full HD display. So what the first thing I need to do is to adapt. Look at the difference when I adapt the canvas, that the size of the letter changed a lot. So that's why it's very important to start adapting the canvas size, the display, and analyzing this, because it will have an impact on how many information you can introduce. First of all, okay? This is a standard, so maybe you can use it. And then next step, because I have already copied the header, the footer, everything, and the grid. Well, this is broken, but I will cut it. I put it here, and the colors are not the right one yet, so I will go for my JSON file and apply it. Okay. And let's see what happened, because I have this grid, but now I cannot see anything. I need to use this selection panel, and now that the grid is in the back, I can place all the elements in a more ordered way, and you can see that every component now that is showing, for example, a KPI, has the same size for the main numbers. For example, the titles has been also standardized. Imagine I put this here, then this here. I put it in randomly because I don't want to spend a lot of time doing this. I just want to show you that this is something that you can really do fast in your company in minutes, okay? Imagine I rearrange everything a little bit. This is super big, but okay, enough. Then the table, let's organize it. And I think you can see how it's changing. And the professional feeling, I think, is different now. Or at least the care we have in the different visuals with the colors, little details with the branding, the style of everything I put. Now that I have this, the last trick I'm gonna show you is if we go to the different elements. For example, I have defined the labels and the legend. In this case, I don't have a legend because I have reinforced the labels itself. So I copy this visual. You can see here that is different. And if I paste, because of the model, the data is different in my different reports, and they are going to break. It's broken. But if I have selected the visual I have already copied, and I press into Format Painter, I can paste, and then I have the style that I have already predefined. We're gonna do the same here for this KPI. I'm not doing this for every element, but you can see these are clicks. And now, because I'm talking with at the same time I'm speaking, I'm not good doing two things at the same time. But let's do it fast. I paste, and in this case, I have adapted a little bit the rounded squares and everything. If I hide the grid, you will see that I have a rounded angles. And let's change also this. Let me open this now. Temporal evolution, I think it's this one. Copy, paste. Apparently everything's broken. I paste. And now I have it. It's true that I have here a lot of information, so maybe I can put it here and make it more like this and rearrange everything. I don't want to spend more time with that, but if you adapt the titles, make some messages, you spend maybe half an hour for every single page. So that's less than thinking about, I will put this color, this other one, blah, 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 blah. And what's more important, you disconnect the message with the business and you focus on their business needs, okay? How I define this with the different customers? First, I analyze the corporate branding colors, the existing dashboards, because it's the way that I can understand how many kind of filters, if they use the slicers or not, or these kind of things, or other specific needs. Then the definition of the theme, of course, we need to define this JSON file, the colors, but always thinking about the contrast. Then fonts, resolutions, grid, menu, navigation types, the things I've already mentioned. Then generate the JSON file, create these templates. Then more materials like the guides and give some training to the developers or the team or the users. And then you need, of course, once you have this, you need to apply it to the previous report you already have in your company. And then the new reports, you will apply always this tool, let's say this design system, for make it more, develop it more in an agile way. I have this business case. If you want more information about this, they have said they have saved some considerable time and optimized the workflow. And let's continue with the user-centered design in an end-to-end way. We have seen the last part, but I wanted to show it to you this because it's the way you can focus on understanding the real business needs. So the first part of the diamond, remember the boxes we had before, and let's remember this design thinking approach. First part of the diamond, we need to emphasize with the business and their needs. What we can do? First, we can make interviews, one-to-one interviews, not only with one user, we need more. We need at least 2, 3, and ideally with different roles, not only the boss, because the boss sometimes has more executive approach, or let's say their decisions, they are not sometimes operational, they are more strategical. And we need to also know the needs of the user that is into the ground, okay? So choose different people and have your sample of users if you think that these interviews can be interesting in your company. Then if you don't have time to speak and to have these interviews with the final users, or they don't want to collaborate, that can happen too, or they are not allowed to spend time doing this, and this is your work, you are the developer, you know about data, and you're a specialist, blah, blah, blah. You can work with an empathy map. This is a tool that is commonly used in marketing departments sometimes, and entrepreneurs, because these empathy maps help us to identify and to think how the user will feel the solution and identify their pains, their efforts, the benefit they expect. Then we can work also with archetypes. Again, another thing connected to the marketing stuff, but you can Google it or ask ChatGPT to help you, or other generative AI tool. And you can also have a form in your company that make more pushy questions. So the user has to think a little bit more on their business, on the decisions they need to take based on your data and the reason of the dashboard. Instead of asking for a table or directly for formulas, we need to ask for business questions. If not, we cannot answer. That's clear. And ideally, we can have a focus group and work live with the users and trying to paint, to understand them, to make these questions, to put every idea into the table and work together, etc. But that's sometimes hard in the companies because we don't have time, and it's it has a cost to have this kind of meetings. In case you choose to have a form in the future, what kind of questions can we include in this form? objectives, what is the expected impact of this report, and the answer cannot be analyzing, okay? That's something else. I want to validate if my sales are increasing. I need to validate if the ROI, the EBITDA in my company, it's below a threshold, or I'm good, I'm bad, and if I have not more stock and I cannot serve my product to the different stores, so I will have a problem soon. Business questions, okay? Objectives. Then measurable objectives. Like we have the first one, then we go deeper. How we will confirm that we are achieving the expected objectives, a number or a threshold, because these kind of questions will allow us to reinforce the message and use the color to highlight when we have a problem or we are good or these things. Then, which business processes are impacted? How? Because maybe you're taking one decision and you need to track a single KPI, but this usually has connections with the rest of the company or the rest of the departments. And we sometimes need more contextual data. We don't only are looking for a ratio or a KPI. We need more information to really develop our message. So which other processes has an impact? How? Then, of course, metrics, KPIs. This is more technical, but we cannot forget about that. But yeah, we can include it in this form. And which people is going to be involved in this development? Stakeholders, end users. Remember, we need to take into account also the end users, not only the project manager, not only the boss that is asking us for a new report. We need to understand the final users. Maybe they need the training because they have never used Power BI. No, can happen. Or maybe that one that is our main interlocutor or project manager or business reference has a lot of knowledge on data visualization techniques, and he has a skin for very, very complex visuals. Maybe the other users has no idea about this kind of analysis, and we cannot put the level very, very complicated for the rest of the users. We need to simplify and have something that gives value for the most of them. And it's very important that we identify these people at the very beginning, because then we need to validate with someone. So we need to identify which people is going to be involved in the testing and in the validation, the final validation of our job. Then the definition of the end users, background, objectives, limitations, preferences, okay, these things. And you can adapt these questions, simplify them, don't put a form with a thousand questions, keep it into 7 questions, 10 questions, and you can do it in Microsoft Forms, in Google Forms, in a Word document, wherever. You don't need Power BI. You don't need the data. You just need the conversation on either a paper. You can do it wherever you want. Once you have all this information, you have really understand the business need. Maybe you can have a meeting. Maybe you can have a workshop. Maybe you need to get this information. And then with all this information, we need to converge. How we converge? Well, I recommend to make a list of pages. So different pages, every page with maybe different objectives. Can happen. Sometimes we try to put everything together in a single page, and that's sometimes wrong because we have limited cognitive load, and less is more. I don't know if I'm a minimalistic person or not, but it's been demonstrated that our cognitive load has limits, and the limits has been studied in the 80s. This is the magical number, or the Miller's law number. And this means that we are able to perceive 7 ± 2 elements at the same time. And I think that's a lot because our capacity of attention is decreasing. But 7 plus minus 2. Don't try to put more than 7 plus minus 2 elements in your page in Power BI. Not include more and more visuals because I have a bit of space here. I put an extra number and an extra visual, and that's not helping the users. We need to limit the amount of information, okay? Ideally, between 6 and I will say 7, because it's better to simplify and reduce, and maybe then we need a parallel page, an extra page that is covering another business question or business scenario or way to analyze. Okay, we have the different pages, and then we need a list with the business requirement, the priority, that's very important, and then the type of visual. In general, we are converging, but not identifying very specifically the thing I need to play, to choose and to set up. And okay, we are just having an overall idea of the elements I will have. A business requirement, for example, main KPIs, net sales, conversion, new users, average ticket value, sales performance, sales by category, sales by brand, blah, 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 whatever you have. Then priority. Why priority? Because depending on that, first, that's something that the business should tell me. I'm not a magician. I have not this capacity of understand what's more relevant for you. Maybe the KPIs, makes sense to put it in a relevant place in the dashboard, but I need this information that comes from the business. So why is important this priority? Because we read following patterns, and we follow the F pattern when we read. I think you're seeing me like mirroring, so it should be like this other way. But the size of the element, if I make a big visual or a small visual, the color, if I use a brighter color or not, because it's more relevant to you, so I will reinforce it. I can do it using color. And also the position. These are the pre-attentive attributes. That's another topic I usually talk about in the different conferences and events. But this priority column, it's really important because it's the key part that will let me to understand where to place the elements and the size and the relevance within the report. So we have technical definition. Of course, we are talking about the business, but we need the technical definition to the content definition, different pages, different elements, the priority, the relevance, ideally the kind of visual we're going to use. And then we need to define every single page with a title, with objectives, and ideally a little description. And if we are talking with the users, they ideally should do it. Then how we are connecting the different pages, so the navigation and the interaction type, how the menus are going to be, and the filters I need, and if we need more contextual information or not. How we can do this with a schema. For example, like this. Imagine I need to analyze by category, by kind of customer. I'm going to take the laser again. Category, by customer, by region, by brand, the different dimensions I have in my star model. Okay, let's think it now in more technical terms. I have these different dimensions. I know that these questions are relevant for the business, so I can put this in a first level, and then in a secondary level, I can show the information, the sales by category in a time scenario or in another, a month to date page that tells me about my monthly performance. And then I give the possibility of to the user to analyze also by week. But my main menu is talking about sales, customers, region, brand. And then I have a pre-default page, month to date, and maybe with a bookmark, I can switch the page and allow the user to select one temporal analysis or the other one. but I'm not mixing, or I'm not putting more than 7 pages, remember, 7 plus means 2, because the quantity of options I will have in the menu, there are a lot, too much. And for a slicer, it's gonna be like one click, another click, super long and ugly, and our cognitive load are gonna be like, we don't need to generate this. That's not improving the user experience. That's confusing. So let's group these different pages and talk about a topic. And then we include the time dimension, different analysis, in case we have more, okay? So, specific UI UX needs, the display, the size. I'm analyzing in my desktop. I'm analyzing in my mobile phone or in my tablet, or I want this report because I'm having a weekly meeting where I put in the wall all the ratios and everything, and I need a super big display, and I can put there a lot of information. I don't know. We need to take into account it now. Like we are now defining. Okay, so here we need to review the specific UI UX needs and the definition of success. That's very important, the UI UX requirement, because first I highly recommend to be familiar with the differences we have in terms of interaction in the Power BI service and in the Power BI desktop, because the experience we have by clicking is very different. So please remember, we need to check everything in Power BI, in the Power BI service. We need to consider here the accessibility rules or things that help us to make better reports for everyone. Display, as already mentioned. And that's very important also if we consider to develop dashboards or reports to be consumed on the go. And this is stupid. This is a little detail, but look how different is to place buttons or things where we are supposed to interact with. In the upper side, that it's where we usually put the menus in our reports, or letting the user to click with the finger. And consider also left-hand users, right-hand users, because this is user experience. This impacts on the capacity I have to click, because I'm not good clicking in the top of my mobile phone. These are details, but we always need to think in the users, okay? And then the MVP. What is my minimum valuable product when we have finished? Because the user can be asking for more and more and more information and changes forever. So when we have finished, define it now. We need this minimum viable product or valuable product, and we need to iterate. And that's possible if we are testing, okay? If we have this testing loop or these evaluation procedures well-defined across our company, it's going to be part of the roadmap of our products. And I'm talking now about products, I know, but the dashboard should be a product. Then we need to iterate. We have to find everything, and we need to think in ideas and then expand the possibilities we have in designing our prototype. And for that, I recommend to have maybe a user flow that comes from the customer journey in marketing jargon. And the idea is to think about the steps and the logic behind the reasoning the business follow to take a decision, and to provide this data in the order they need to take the decision, okay? You can do it in a paper. You can do it in a flow chart, more professional flow chart tool. You choose, but you need to think in the order, because it's gonna allow you to define or fine-tune the previous definition we already did. Then we need to prototype, as I have already mentioned. We need to find a path to validate a solution. And we can talk about high fidelity mockups. We have tools like Figma that allow us to generate resources and prototypes that are very close to the final solution, very close to Power BI. But what is the problem, or what is the problem I see in this kind of mockups? That we need to be professionals in design, and the learning curve of tools like Figma can be hard, can be not very fast. And I highly emphasize with you, I mean, technical people, Power BI developers, because we need to be superstars, apparently, in the different, or Power BI, or even worse, Fabric. We need to know SQL, data modeling, DAX, languages like Power Query, a lot of things. And then all these perceptual conditions, design concepts, and have the good ways, and be able to talk with the business, understand the business, understand the data. We need to do a lot of things. So can we spend time and be professionals also in Figma? I don't know. And that's why I previously showed to you the demo. We have the final design, the visual aspect of the report. We have attached previously, so we can work with low fidelity mockups. And a low fidelity mockup can be something like a paper where you can paint and remove or change it fast, and involve the users to paint with you and do a lot of things really easy and fast to validate the solution. Okay, so I highly recommend this because it's faster. It's not perfect, but it can be enough. And in the middle, we have tools like mockups.com, where we can also include some interaction details. So it can help us to connect different pages. And that's good because, or is useful because we can validate the navigation and give the user the feeling that they are really interacting with the buttons. I'm gonna show it to you. Let me open the tool. 1 second. You will see, oops, sorry, you're seeing my desktop. Let me open the tool, continue. Okay, we have here the same report you previously seen. And well, first of all, I always introduce super fast this. I like this tool because if you create a new page, for example, this new page, if I go to these forms, I have here elements, for example, this is like super similar to the by default slicers we have in Power BI, right? Or the by default button, or something that lets the user understand and they can pick the date, or slider with the possibility of interacting also. It's very useful. Of course, text holders, and a lot of elements that can really help you to define something and design a mock-up, okay? But what's more important, we have these common elements, but we have charts. And which kind of charts we have? We have the bar chart, the stacked bar chart, the stacked column chart, the line chart, the area chart, the pie chart, the funnel chart, the donut chart, clicks. This is very, very fast, okay? Imagine I have this pie chart. What's a good thing? I can change the data and I can put the series I want and use the colors I want. For example, this green, this pink, this blue. And I can also use the colors of my company if you want this touch of style, okay? But what's more important, I can change the labels, shirts, and put here the numbers that are more realistic with my company. Oops. Okay. You can also paste the CSV file. So I can, wait, I didn't change the the series name. Okay, B2B, B2C, others. So I have the legend, I can put his here and then put a rectangle and give this feeling of visual in literally minutes. Range. Okay, back. Okay. What I recommend, if you use this tool, make a dashboard where you can copy and paste, and you will have all the components in a grayscale, for example, and you can reuse the whole format of your dashboard with the menu, with the buttons, with the whatever you need, okay? And what's the good thing, apart of that we have a lot of components in this tool? The good thing is we can put, imagine, we want to put a button where we let the user get more information and a description about a report and the possibilities to chat in Teams with us or send me an email to whatever. Then to come back to the main report. If I have this page, this Villian page, let's go to the mockup. What's the idea? If I put here the button here in this angle, what I can do is go to interactions, and then I have here the possibility to go to the page, to a page, to open a link, or to go back. The possibilities of interaction we have in Power BI are not that much, and we usually change into pages. And what we can show the user if we are creating our mockup with this tool. For example, in this case, I want to go to page, and I need to select the page where I have the extra information. Let's say is the contact page. I click into done. And then if I click into preview, I can have the feeling they will experiment in the Power BI service. If I put over my mouse into the button, I will identify that this button is clickable, so I can click, and then I go to a page. In this case, it was not the example, but you have the overall idea. You can connect the different pages you have, and then you can go back. And this is the experience, the interactivity you need to validate with the business. It's more important to validate the information and the navigation than comments like I don't like this color, I prefer the logo to be bigger or to be in this angle, or I like red, or I like blue, or I like purple. I don't care about your preference in terms of colors. I'm sorry, but I try to yeah, I know what we all know that we have limited time sometimes in the business, especially. So I prefer to spend time talking about their needs and their problems and how they use the data, because this is what it means to create reports for the business. Okay. So you already know mockups.com. That has been a fast explanation, but I hope you like it and you can use it for validating your reports. We can validate the navigation, as I told you before, and then we need to choose the right visual. We have already identified for every single page the different visuals, and we have an idea, change over time, evolution, or no, I want the ranking, I want the table because I need the granularity with everything, all the data, blah, blah, blah. How we choose the right visual, because that's something that is not easy, and we have a lot of options. What I recommend, first, explore the data. We need to understand the data to develop the narrative. If not, we cannot choose randomly visual. Then, we already have the communication objectives. We have on that list, if we need to compare, if we need to show the evolution, if we want to allow the exploration, then the audience. What are the preference in the chart types? What I said that because there are some departments that has been get comfortable since all the years they have been working in that department and with a specific type of charts. For example, people that comes from finance loves metrics and they are really comfortable with Excel. So can we provide a feeling of Excel file? I don't like it, but this is the best solution for them because they already are comfortable. We can enrich our tables and make things more interactive in Power BI, and that's something we need to develop. But at the first input, we can identify that for those people, having a matrix or a table is going to be the best solution. And then we enrich with the conditional formatting, with icons, with different colors that help the eyes to look at the point where we need to focus our attention and enrich everything, okay? But do not put an Instagram because an Instagram is something that for some people, not data people or not statistical people, can be very hard to understand. Even a scatter plot or a bubble chart, because we are analyzing different axes. So please think about the audience. Again, we have already analyzed them. So find a chart that is more easier to them to analyze and interpret. And also think about their Power BI knowledge, because maybe they need a little bit of help at the very beginning. And this time is going to be spent in a good way because they will be able then to understand other reports because we are standardizing our design. So they're going to be more comfortable and get the best of the data themselves without asking you every time they have a new need of analysis. And then, of course, graphical decisions, level configurations, strategic use of colors. You need to develop the narrative. Well, we were iterating, so user flow and information architecture, how I connect everything, then layouts, wireframes, choose of the visual, and you generate the interactive mockup. And we have almost done. We have generate the idea, we validate with the business, and then we need to converge again, and we are close to the deliver. And we develop it in Power BI. We open Power BI now. Before, we can just have papers and conversations with the users. We don't need the real data until here. Then you apply the theme, what I tell you before. Half an hour per page, less. It's going to be less, I'm sure, when you get comfortable with these kind of tools. You apply the colors, the branding, okay? What are the benefits? Agility in creating new reports, standardization, not only for you as developer, but because you will reduce the learning curve for new reports for the users. Then branding department, professional perception, and avoid opinions about colors, as I already mentioned, to focus the attention and the conversation with the users on what's really important, not the colors, not the if I like Open Sans or I like Arial or time. I don't remember now the other name of the typography, but focus the conversation on what's really important, on validating, on testing. We apply the design theme. Technical validation, of course, we need data quality. We need to be sure that the performance is going to be correct and everything works. And then the usability and the accessibility testing. This is very important, and this is something we need. First, for validating the idea, we need a test. We have already did a test where we validate the idea, the interaction, the contents. And then when we have created this and put it into the service, we need to validate and be sure that everything is that should be clickable is clickable, that everything filter, that every button works as expected. If I put in a button where it's written back, should be go back. And I know that can sound a bit silly, but that can happen, that you have a button, then you click and nothing happens. And that's not a good experience at all. So you need to test and then to implement a feedback loop. Why? Because this is something that the report is something that should be, it's a solution, so should be live. It's not something you create for a report in a meeting and that's all. No, you do something, you create a tool that it's going to be available for a long time, for months, for years, I don't know, but you need this feedback loop and you need to understand where have we failed, because we need to correct it or improve it. But at the same time, we can ask for what we have done right, what people like, what the final user like, because this is a good input if we want to understand what we have to promote and standardize in our design system, in our reports, in the way we do things. And this creates a loop for you. Continuous improvement, it's called. Okay, maybe you have heard about this. I know that I have talked about a lot of boxes and things you have to do for creating a good report, thinking about the final user, blah, blah, blah. But focus on the pink boxes. The pink boxes are those ones where you need to spend time for every new report. And that are technical definition. Of course, you need it. You already do that. Content definition, that will help us time, because sometimes we put things randomly, then we need to validate, then we choose it, then we change it, then we need to reorganize it. So it's better to define, then you pick the right ones and you do it. Definition of success, that's part of a project. You need to know when you end your work and you can deliver, right? So that's from now, there are like common things I hope you do during your projects in general. Then user flow schema with the representation of how the people decide in the business. Then layouts, wireframes. This is a paper. This can be a paper or mockups.com or other tool. You can find a lot of different tools that helps you to validate these mockups. Then, of course, you need to choose the visual and the details and validate this mockup. Then you develop it in Power BI, but without thinking a lot of colors, access, letters, and no, you put the things without touching the style. Then you apply the theme. You, of course, adjust the little details, the final things, the label, if you need conditional formatting, if you need to highlight something, you really need to reinforce a message and put the key parts, and then you validate, and then you do your technical test, and you have everything. So if you standardize the way you get information with the form, with the interview is something you can replicate and have it in your company and reuse it every single time. And so step by step, you will learn better and understand and develop your skills for have a better way to emphasize with the business and understand them better and deeper and deeper. So you will also do this faster. And once you have this, you can deliver faster, okay? As I told you, adapt these ideas. Maybe this last part, you prefer to divide it into, and you have a prototype. You have a Power BI prototype because you don't want mockups, or you don't like Figma, or you don't like to use paper because you need to deliver always in Power BI. Okay, but maybe you don't need the real data, and you can develop all these without the real data, and in parallel the technical people is working, the technical people, the engineers are getting the data from the origins and modeling and blah 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 blah, the quality, doing the formulas, whatever. And in parallel you can have an Excel file with no real data, but you can develop something that is a prototype, and you can validate with the business. And then once you have the data, of course, you deliver. But find this as something that you can do in parallel. This is not saving time. This is not spending more time while developing. The idea is you really understand and create with the business while you keep your loop of sprints or the procedure you follow in your company. But you end in this point and you cross these two paths of work, and you can deliver, assuring that you are developing something that is really useful for the business. And as I have already mentioned, the dashboard is a live project because data changes, requirements changes, the environment changes, not the environment thinking about the climate change and these things, no. The business scenarios change, the strategy of the company change, the business priorities, everything is changing in a business real scenario. So we need to track, and we need to learn, build, measure, and iterate. We need to get this feedback. We need to make the people assured that if we are asking them for feedback, we are using the feedback to improve the dashboard and to prioritize the different aspects we need to improve in our dashboard development, in our design system, in our procedures in general. Because if not, they won't collaborate in the definition. Okay, that's important. We need to keep a good relationship with the final users, always. And yeah, and bugs happen, and UX improvements are gonna happen, and errors happen in life. But it's important to develop this culture of understanding each other and to improve our designs. And we are having 10 minutes for questions in case you have. But remember, we are not artists. We are following patterns, structures, methodologies, because we are solving complex problems. So we need to be close to the final users. And well, I hope you have get some ideas or strategies, and you can implement something while you are developing reports. And thank you very much to the organizers. It's been a pleasure to be here. I'm preparing some videos and trying to upload some YouTube videos in English, some of them translated by AI, but I think the quality is enough. In case you want to learn more about these UX approaches within Power BI or in data visualization in general, I have also another a TikTok account where I cover these topics in English, UX for Power BI. And you can follow me on LinkedIn and ask for whatever you want. I'm almost always online. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Does anyone have any questions? You can raise your hand and I'm going to give you the right to speak.
will stop sharing.
Okay, I guess no one has a question. So do you have any words for closing?
I know that I have shared a lot of ideas, and sometimes they're not very. I have no time to go deeper, but on some of them. But I usually cover these approaches, trying to connect the basics of human perception and apply them in how to improve our designs. Always keeping in mind that we work in projects with limited time, so trying to standardize the procedures because it's hard sometimes to make perfect designs. We can spend time and time and time, and we need to like prioritize a lot. So if you like these kind of tips, I can help you, or just follow me because I share a lot of free content. So yeah, I know that it's a different approach, but I hope you have learned something today. Hopefully you can apply it.
Okay. Thank you, Paula, for an interesting presentation.